We all know that effective internal communication is the secret to high-performing teams and companies. Did you know that according to a Tower Watson study, companies with effective employee communication tools see 47% higher total returns than businesses that communicate ineffectively? Beekeeper, a leader in employee communication, has developed an effective guide to help you understand your internal communications, especially if you work with a frontline team. Download Beekeeper's free guide today at www.beekeeper.io/crisisavertedpodcast. That's www.beekeeper.io/crisisavertedpodcast. Welcome to the Crisis Averted Podcast, produced by CJ Media Solutions. I'm your host, CJ Arlotta. In this episode, I speak with Vrinda Johnson, co-founder of ChekMarc Inc. During our conversation, she shares how the ChekMarc platform is building impactful connections that unite humanity instead of tearing it apart. Feel free to send me your feedback at cj@cjmediasolutionsllc.com. Thanks for listening. For people who aren't familiar with you, mind telling us a little bit about who you are, your background, and what you're up to now?
Sure, absolutely. So I am Vrinda Johnson to start, and I am currently leading the effort to launch the ChekMarc platform. It's a new startup, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But background-wise, I grew up in India. I came here about 20 years ago to go to college. I went to Trinity University in Texas, met my husband the first week of college, and haven't looked back since. We live in Chicago now, and I have two beautiful kids. My daughter's turning 13 in 2 weeks, which mortifies me and excites me at the same time. And then my son is 11, soon to be a teenager in a couple years too. So very exciting and busy life for sure.
How'd you end up in Chicago?
My husband lives, he's from here. His whole family is here. So it just kind of made sense for us. And we love Texas and we miss Texas, but this is just more, especially with the kids growing up, it's just a better place to be.
So no plans on going back to Texas then?
No promises. Who knows? Anything is possible.
So, Vrinda, you mentioned briefly ChekMarc. Could you talk a little bit about that? What's the story behind it?
Absolutely. So ChekMarc is, and it's live right now. So you could go and find it online via ChekMarc.com, or you could download the app for both Apple and Android. But it's a social platform. And the purpose of the social platform is a little different though, CJ. So when you think about why we created ChekMarc, the single purpose was to connect people one-on-one in a private connection. And the purpose is to help each other achieve a goal. So let's say that, I was doing my first ever podcast and needed some help and guidance and coaching around how do I prepare for it? What are the things I can expect? I could put that out there on ChekMarc as a question or as a request. And someone like yourself might see it or search for it and find it and respond to me and say, hey, by the way, I'd love to connect and give you the guidance you're looking for. It's free to use, so we don't have any sort of embedded fees or anything like that. And the whole purpose is to create a positive interaction between you and me. So we don't have comments and shares and likes and forwards, and the conversations are private. And we also have pretty heavy content moderation. Again, not to limit anybody's ability to, communicate, but to just preserve the positivity and the purpose around the communication.
How do you go about verifying users? Is there a verification process or a vetting process of any sort?
There is. So we actually have ID verification as something that we have built into our platform. It is an optional feature for members right now. However, we are thinking about ways in which we can really encourage members to verify. And it is a verification process, leveraging technology and leveraging a partner through Verif, which is very similar to what a lot of financial institutions do today. So it's not just a social verification, it truly is identity verification. And for those that get verified, you get a little icon next to your handle or member name that says you're verified. And again, that the whole purpose there is to really try and drive the trust that you are speaking to the person on the other side who they say they are.
Now, how do you know if somebody is actually an expert in a specific topic? Is there a vetting process for that?
So right now, a lot of the things that we're doing are relying on the community.
Okay.
And that's on purpose, that's intentional, is that we're giving the community a chance to actually say that, yes, I am, these are some of the areas that I have knowledge and expertise in. If I'm a verified person, there's an increased likelihood of me being an expert in those areas. We have, little birdie told me that we have a few more things that we are getting ready to bring in, which will actually help the community certify or show that, yes, this person helped me in this particular area. So that's just one additional layer in addition to the identity verification that we're building in.
Are you able to talk about those?
Not fully yet.
Okay.
But it's the reason I bring that up is because I actually have mentioned it I've mentioned it to a few of our partners too, because it's important to know that we understand that the endorsement of the expertise is important to show credibility, build credibility, and continue to build trust. And we heard that from our community, in our initial launch with the beta members that we worked with, as well as subsequent feedback that we've received. So we're listening very intently and very quickly acting on that feedback.
And I'm sorry I interrupted you. You were going on to point number 2.
So I think the point number 2 around that is that we also have the ability for members to report, flag, and also just kind of nudge us and let us know, hey, by the way, just wanted to let you know that something's amiss, whether it is an inappropriate use of the site or it is inappropriate communication, language, or anything that could be considered bullying, including misrepresentation of expertise. And that is also confidential. So it's not like if you reported me for something, CJ, that everyone would see it. But we have the ability to then reach out to the member and go through a verification process that's unique to ChekMarc to make sure that we can either validate on behalf of the member or let them know that, hey, by the way, we're not going to tolerate misrepresentation on ChekMarc. That's just something we're going to stick to pretty closely.
Now, ChekMarc markets itself as a humane technology platform. What does that mean? What's the definition of that?
There are a few ways in which I would qualify that as it pertains to ChekMarc. The first is the content moderation that we mentioned. That is something that we are actually unapologetic about, saying that we want this to be a positive interaction. So in order to maintain that, content moderation is a big part of our platform for text, video, and image. And that is, it's not just us having millions of people going in and making judgment calls. It is AI-based to a certain extent. And then there we have the ability, very clearly laid out in our guidelines, we have the ability to reach out to either disable or remove a member from the platform if it's used inappropriately. So we don't tolerate the cyberbullying, so to speak. The second part of it, when you think about humane technology, is we don't sell members' data. So there's no advertising on our site. When you go in, you're going in with a single purpose of either trying to accomplish something and connect with someone, or connect with someone to help them accomplish something you may be able to help them with. Therefore, there isn't this concept of us selling members' data to, if somebody wants to run a marathon, we're going to go now all of a sudden see Nike ads. That doesn't happen at ChekMarc.
Right. So just going off of that, those are 2 big issues, right? That I think that a lot of users on other social media platforms are aware of and weary of and would like to see improved. How did you go about creating your processes as far as, moderation? What were you looking for? How are you looking to streamline the process? How are you making it in a way that made the most sense compared to some of the other platforms that are out there, and including the advertising component that you mentioned as well?
Yeah. So let's talk about the moderation, and then I can address the advertising. So we're addressing both.
Sure.
With respect to the moderation, there were a couple of things that we considered. One was, how can we leverage the AI-based content moderation that is coming about. We're seeing a lot of folks start to pay attention to it. We're starting to see a lot of technology to support it as well. And for us, it was a lot of research around partners that we could possibly work with. And to us, it was important that, one, the platform itself was pretty robust, and it gave us the ability to enforce things that may or may not have been considered before. And the second was, we wanted a similar commitment to what we're trying to build, which is a positive interaction between our members. And all of that went into, well, we have to tie content moderation directly in to the way people use ChekMarc. So when you go in and you try and type a curse word, it won't even let you get past that step. You go in and you try and put in certain types of images, pornography as an example, it's not going to let you do it. Now, just like everything else, AI is learned. So as we build and as we grow, we're going to improve the models over time as well. But it was very, very important to us that this was something we incorporated right off the bat. The second piece of it, which is specifically around the advertising and the data, to us it was important. The privacy and the security of our members was important because, to your point, there's just a lot of noise out there, and the noise is, in my opinion, CJ, what's happening is that digital communication enabled people to communicate in ways that were never before thought of. It broke down barriers, whether it was geography or age or demographic or whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden it became too much of an uncontrolled communication to where anybody, anywhere could form an opinion that actually was made you or impacted you in such a way that you couldn't get out of bed the next morning because you were so depressed. So what we said is that, we've got to get back to the fundamental benefit of digital communication, which is barrierless access to people that can help, people that can actually support each other. And to do that, we have to take away the ability for things to be public. We have to keep these conversations and interactions private. And within those private conversations, we have to be able to, people should know that they can't just curse somebody out because they're having a bad day, because that impacts them and then everybody around them, right? So our approach to moderation was fundamental when we thought about it. The advertising and data is the second part of it, which is we didn't want to sell members' data. We said we don't want to use ChekMarc as a place where you can, not only can you help somebody, but now you have these 6 or 7 or just 8 different ads that are starting to pop up because, in one of my phone conversations with a friend, I said I wanted to buy new shoes. I'm telling you,
things are getting weird, right?
It's so weird. I have Alexa, and I keep thinking, I'm like, what? Do I need to reset my settings? Because I'm pretty sure I only thought that in my head and didn't say it out loud.
Yeah.
But that's part of it, is that we want this interaction to be pure. So when you go to ChekMarc, you go with the purpose. And you go with the purpose of either finding, putting yourself out there and saying, hey, I need help, or finding someone that needs that help and just start a dialogue. This is another reason why we're global. So it's like we're global, we're available in 36 different languages right off the bat. And I can't tell you how many times people have told me, you're crazy. Why are you doing all that? And I said, well, because if there are 2 people in France that want to connect and they both speak French, then they should be able to connect on ChekMarc too,
Yeah.
But that's what it is privacy, security, positivity. Those are just fundamental to what we've done and what we've built.
How do you avoid over moderation? Because that's a problem too for a lot of users on some other social media platforms.
Yep, that is a great point. And in fact, that was a topic of debate last week and the week before, and I'm sure it'll come up again this week. And the thing is that we, no matter how you look at it, whether you look at it as under or over moderation, it's not an exact science. And I think that we have accepted that it's not an exact science. And in order to continue to serve our members and our community in the best possible way, we're going to keep listening. So if we have the ability for members to reach out to us in the process itself, like if something gets moderated out, we have the ability for them to actually tell us, hey, this got moderated out. I don't know why. Can you help me understand it? And if we look at it, and we actually have like a committee that we've set up where we review everything, and it's purposely a diverse committee of, when you think about demographic and age and thought, including our advisors, where we can say that, what, Vrinda may think that this is not appropriate. However, Austin or Mark or Rebecca or Lindsay or CJ may think that it's okay. So how do we find the balance? So our commitment is we're going to continue to listen. And as we continue to listen, we're going to improve how we moderate. What I know for sure is that we're not going to tolerate things that, are considered like, we're not going to tolerate profanity against somebody or towards somebody. We're not going to tolerate racist or hate speech. We're not going to, we think about this as global human rights, and anything that would violate anything that is considered a global human right, we're actually going to stand pretty firm on. Like it's not, ChekMarc's not the place for it.
Now, you mentioned before that you're not selling user data. What is your revenue model?
It's a great question again. So we are 100% laser focused right now, CJ, on building the community. And we have set ourselves up for being able to support and continue to build ChekMarc over the course of the next 18 to 24 months in that way, in the way that we have in terms of raising funding. We're privately funded, and we're going to continue to be that way. Now, both myself and my co-founder, Mark, we both come from financial services, consulting, and professional services. So, you better believe we've got like a business model number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
And we've got all of everything from a strategy through execution, through, budget, through, the profit planning and all of that built out for each of those. But in order to get there, our first measure of success is we want to build our community, and we want to give the community what they want. And we're committed to doing that through at least the end of next year.
How can community members get the most of the ChekMarc community?
I think that it depends on what role you're going to take on ChekMarc, and not that you have to take a role, okay? But you get the most out of ChekMarc by going there to do one of two things. One is, if there's something you're really, really good at, something you're really passionate about, or something that you may have built as a skill over time. And I'll use running as an example. I was never a runner, okay? And I struggled with my weight for the longest time. Last year, I woke up one morning and said, I'm going to become a runner. And since then, I have gotten significantly better, where I can actually do a 10-mile run without worrying about it. That to me is not necessarily expertise, but I would love to be able to reach out to somebody that has posted something on ChekMarc that says, I've never run in my life before and I'm terrified. Can someone help me? And I'd love to be able to share my story with them to say, don't be afraid of it. The best thing to do is just get up and do it and find the right support system. That's what you can use ChekMarc for. The second thing is that so not my side, but the other side, if there is something that you really feel is impactful for you, something that you want to accomplish in your life, but just aren't sure where to go, and you actually think that you could benefit from having a one-on-one connection with someone, a private connection with someone where you can open up yourself in a way that you haven't before, go to ChekMarc, because you'd be surprised at what you might be able to find there. And that is how you get the best out of it, is go in with the purpose. And the purpose is either to help or help somebody else.
Now, have there been any instances where perhaps you have a certain skill? Let's say you're a writer, you've written a book before, someone else is looking to write a book or have something ghostwritten and wants to learn the process. Have there been instances where that conversation has been moved off the platform and one individual is now asking money from the other individual and trying to generate some revenue off of that. How do you avoid that? Has that happened before?
So we haven't heard of any of those examples happen.
Mm,
And one of the things is that we are very, we're as part of our guidelines, we try and reinforce with our members that, the ChekMarc isn't for financial exchange.
mm,
Now, can we control that? Probably not. We can,
mhm.
really just rely on our members to say that if there was an interaction like that, that they would come back and report that this was an interaction, just FYI, this person was trying to drum up business.
Mm.
And we aren't built in a way, CJ, where we require you just to interact on the platform, right? So you can do what you said, which is take the conversation offline,
Mm.
because you might be a person that wants to do a Zoom call, or you
Mhm.
might be a person that wants to pick up the phone, or you discover it's somebody down the street and you actually want to meet for a cup of coffee. Now, we've built it in such a way to allow that communication and allow that interaction, because what's most important to us is that you can find the help that you're looking for or give back in the way you want to. And we are relying on our community pretty heavily to say that, hey, this went south because I went to Starbucks to meet this person and they turned out to be just a yelling, screaming, crazy person, or
Sure. Yeah.
I picked up the phone and called this person, and for 30 minutes, they talked to me about selling their product or buying their product. And in that case, we will actually reach out to the member confidentially, not saying that, okay, CJ reported you, but just say, hey, by the way, we were informed that there was some activity around selling your business or selling a service. That's fantastic, but just don't do it on ChekMarc. There are plenty of other platforms where you can use to promote your business. It's just not something we allow on ChekMarc.
How do you get members to keep coming back? Maybe they join the platform for seeking advice about a particular topic. How do you get them to come back and seek advice for another topic down the road?
So there are a few ways in which we're trying to and really trying to keep our ear to the ground and engage our community and our members. One thing that I will say, CJ, is that, we are thinking about this very differently. We are taking everything that we've been told or know about social platform networking, engagement, and turning it on its head. Meaning our goal is to create value where members come back. Our goal is not to find, gimmicks and tips and tricks to keep coming back.
Right.
Which most business professors and, business advisors, et cetera, will tell you is just, it's asinine, right? It's kind of silly to do it that way.
Sure.
But I do feel that when you go and experience one interaction, I had a focus group with someone that was part of our initial beta before we went, before we went live, and since then has been on the platform. And his feedback to me was the best. He said, "Vrinda, when I first went in and I connected with this one person, I was trying to get advice on curbing cravings for sugar because it is becoming a health problem for me. But I didn't want to talk to like a doctor or a nurse. I wanted to talk to somebody that understands that I still want to bike 50 miles a weekend." I connected with someone, and when she first reached out to me, her message was, it started to sound like she was trying to sell me something. But then that was my own bias against connecting with someone like this. And
Mm.
when I got rid of that bias and I made the connection, we've since had a conversation over the last 2 weeks. And it's been a fantastic conversation where I actually feel like I have a mentor for life. And because of that, I went back on and I go back on to ChekMarc to find ways in which I can partake in a similar interaction, but be on the giving side. And to me, that's a win. And if that happens over and over, it's kind of like the pay it forward concept. That's what we're trying to build and get our members to be aware of, and share your success stories so that the rest of the members can see it. Search the community to see what success stories have been posted and how connections are working, and create that desire because you want to come back with a purpose, not just come back because, the algorithm ran right.
Right. Right. Why do you think there's just been an increase in nastiness on other social media platforms over the years? Is that just due to the climate? It just seems, to me, it seems like it's a lot easier for people to be that way online than when you're facing somebody face to face. So how do you avoid that from happening to a platform like ChekMarc?
Well, I'll answer both of your questions.
Hmm.
So I do think that a lot of the way in which communication has deteriorated or become so negative and so toxic has to do with the ability for there's a little bit, not a little bit. I'm going to be very firm in this. There's a lack of control. There's just a lack
Hmm.
of empathy,
Hmm.
and because it's digital online and it's like a message that you type out on a phone and never look at it again, you have no idea the impact that it has. So it's not like you're standing face to face from someone and you're saying that, calling them a jerk, and you can see their face fall.
Right.
You're not, there are no repercussions or there are no consequences for people sharing um, thoughts that might actually hurt somebody. And because there isn't any sort of association with, okay, my words can actually have an impact even though I'm typing them. And I do feel that that is just a lack of understanding and empathy that is developed because we could be hiding behind masks, whether it's a
Hmm.
digital mask or not, whether it's just hiding behind a screen, even if you are using your own information and your pictures and your full name and everything, you're still hiding behind a screen. I say this to my kids all the time: don't type it if you wouldn't say it to them in person.
Sure.
And
That's great
it's
advice.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, it's 11 and 12-year-olds are looking at it like, okay, I shouldn't say that,
Right.
because mom's right. I wouldn't actually say this to them in person. And that is the principle that I think we're really trying to enforce here at ChekMarc is we shouldn't say it unless we would say it to them in person. And if we would say it to them in person, then maybe ChekMarc is not the right place. Maybe what we're doing is that we just have to rejigger our own brains to think about communication in a positive way. And then the second part of it is that that's kind of where the idea behind our approach to moderation and verification has come in, which is this is why we really push it. This is why we're unapologetic about it. This is why we're saying that we're trying to create a different way for us to communicate digitally so that we can be positive, so that we can enhance and leverage the, breaking down barriers and biases concept in the digital age the way it should be. That's kind of how the whole value proposition and the differentiator around ChekMarc was built. And that's what we're going to keep focusing on so that we keep coming back to this is why we're fundamentally different.
I think a lot of people nowadays are really looking for that too. I mean, some of the other
Yeah.
social media platforms, I open up my phone and I go to one, and just within seconds, I end up closing it because there's always something that's so hostile on there, and the nastiness, and it's just there's no positivity at all. And
Mm-hmm.
not everything in life you can put a positive spin on it, right? But at the same time, it's just always in your face over and over and over again, and people are really looking for a different outlet, I think.
Yeah. And it's exhausting to a certain extent,
It is
and again,
exhausting, very exhausting. Yeah.
it really is. And it's just
Yeah.
like, to me, it's just we're just taking away the how powerful it could be.
Right.
It's just, and let's get back to that. Let's get back to being able to communicate across oceans and across, like, me communicating with people back in India or people somewhere completely obscure, and just doing it in a way that actually builds us up. Let's build each other up is the whole point. And I mean, I'll give you another personal example is very recently this happened too. And on a platform like LinkedIn, I look at LinkedIn as probably like the cleanest, safest place when you think
Right.
about,
Yeah.
platforms. And it was just,
It's a
you
platform I use
know,
the most, especially for work.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And you would think that that would have a different feel to it,
Hmm.
And for me, it was just you know, a simple thing where I was sharing a sentiment about why ChekMarc and why we were so committed to building ChekMarc around. We really are trying to change the way we work, change the way we communicate, and just change the way we think. And it was just this very unexpected comment from somebody I haven't talked to in 3 years about, well, how about you start by helping former colleagues get a job? Because
Mm-hmm.
with my prior Russell Reynolds experience. And I cannot tell you, I was physically hurt and just out of it for the whole day. And I
What
was
type
just
of
like,
feedback? What type of feedback did that individual receive? Did anybody else comment on that?
nobody,
Oh,
no. It was
wow.
not it was not something that was commented on. And I actually like sat back and thought about it. And I was like, you know what? I'm pretty tough when it comes to criticism, and I have pretty thick skin. And
Yeah.
I can take certain things. I don't understand why it hurt me so much. And I was just like, I really am trying to drive change. Like, but at the same time, did I really hurt them? Like, can I really help them? Like, am I, being hypocritical? And all these questions started to come into my mind. And I actually had to stop myself and say, no, you're not.
Mm.
You haven't, this is the reason why you're building ChekMarc. This is the reason why there's so much commitment and passion behind it. It's crazy what one little comment can do. And I can't even imagine thousands of those directed at somebody, or even a group of people. It's just, there's an opportunity to do better. And I really hope that we can do that via ChekMarc.
You mentioned, we just mentioned LinkedIn, for example, and we usually don't see too much negativity on LinkedIn for the most part. Do you think that has a lot to do with something you mentioned earlier about being able to really identify the person behind the mask, right? LinkedIn, everybody is in that professional, environment. Everybody's supposed to be on their best behavior. You can see where somebody's working, and there's that tie to that. So people are less likely to post a negative comment or show some nastiness, right? Do you believe that that's kind of key compared to some of the other social networks where you can really hide behind that mask?
I do think so. I think that, it's again the purpose behind the platform,
Mm-hmm.
and the purpose behind LinkedIn, even though it's grown. I have a lot of respect for them because they've been able to kind of stick to their guns when it comes to just being able to stand by the purpose, which is this professional network where you can help each other in a professional capacity, or you can connect in a professional capacity. Right. And that comes with the right leadership and the right commitment to what they're designed to do. And with that, there's more of a fear of, what if I say the wrong thing? Is it going to mess up my career or my life or my job? Versus, I'm just going to say it because I feel like it. So I think there's just a decorum that LinkedIn enforces. It's slowly going away, but I think that they're actually taking action against it, which is good. But it's just, I do think that's what it is. It's the purpose behind the platform has stayed as true as they possibly can.
And do you think it has a lot to do with the features too, that, LinkedIn is creating certain features that are designed to keep that decorum that you're speaking about compared to other platforms like Facebook and Twitter, where maybe those algorithms are pulling out some of those different types of comments, those negative comments, just to kind of generate eyes on a particular post?
Yes, I can't disagree with that because
Mm-hmm.
it's, if you apply the same logic to what we're doing with ChekMarc, is like part of how we're maintaining the positivity is by removing the negative comments or the negative text and the images. So I'm sure that, I have a lot of respect for all the different platforms out there in different ways. And I'm very much focused on us being true to our purpose too, because that's when we're successful. When we're true to our purpose, we're successful. When we start to kind of waver and try to be like everybody else, that's when we kind of fall behind the curve a little bit.
What type of feedback have you heard from a lot of your members?
So the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, and similar to what you mentioned earlier on in the conversation, CJ, where you talked about, there just seems to be a need.
Yeah.
And Mark uses the example of a paperclip, which I think is redundant in today's world. And I make fun of him all the time because
Right.
I can't tell you the last time I used the paper, forget a paperclip.
Right.
But, he uses it conceptually to describe the concept of ChekMarc. Nobody knew that the paperclip was something that would solve so many problems just to organize a whole bunch of stack of papers. But when you found a paperclip, it was like, oh my God, I can actually do this. So we really do see ChekMarc as that. And that's been the feedback, is like, oh my God, this is so simple in concept. And here you are with the platform that does it. So it's been very, very positive. We are constantly listening. So when you get off the call and you go on to ChekMarc and create your account, I want you to send me a note and say, Vrinda, here's what worked and here's what I want to see. Because I can almost guarantee you that we're listening on purpose with intent to provide a improved experience based on what our members want.
Are you guys looking to raise additional funding?
So that is putting my business hat on. The answer to that is always a yes and no. As of right now, are we focused on it? Are we starting to pitch for it? Are we starting to think about it? No, we're focused on building the community. Is it something that we foresee in the future? Possibly. I think it's going to depend on what happens over the next 60 to 90 days with some of the upcoming releases, with the engagement and the increase in our membership. And it's never say never kind of situation.
Right. What about your initiatives for ChekMarc in 2021? Some of the things that you're working on, maybe there are some new features coming down the pike.
So there, again, this is where it's like, I hate being that person that says, yes, but I can't tell you all about it.
Right.
But no,
there's got to be some things, Vrinda.
Well, we are, what we are doing is we are based on members' feedback and based on collective feedback from focus groups. And I told you that, we've established a few focus groups that are core to us right now. And they are very diverse. And when I say diverse, I want you to know that it means everything from age to gender to to ethnicity to location to language to everything. And we're doing that on purpose. And based on feedback from our focus groups, we are finding ways and going to implement ways in which ChekMarc will be a very, very personal, very, I don't even know how to describe it. I don't want to say customized because that makes it seem like a product.
Right.
And it's not a product customized to you, but it's just a very personal experience with the application. And that is something that I'm very excited about, because I do think that it's going to create ways in which people are going to want to engage with ChekMarc, but we're not trying to game the system. We're just trying to give everybody what they're asking for.
Vrinda, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
You are most welcome. Thank you so much for having me.